What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and it's been a minute since I've looked over at the constantly burning Disney Kingdom, and it seems like now is a good time for that. So, in this video, consider it an all-in-one primer to all the most recent going-ons when it comes to Disney currently. From the company retreating in defeat to pushing woke ideology and people like Rachel Zegler allegedly being fired. And Star Wars' viewership numbers being in the dumps. Anyway, let's get to it. It's no surprise that Disney has embraced the woke agenda probably more so than any other large entertainment giant in the industry, with tons of content being thrown up onto Disney Plus and cinemas that pushes nonsensical ideological narratives to increase ESG scores. From the Proud Family demanding reparations, inferior remakes that change or sometimes add an entire hour to the movie's runtime when compared to the original, like The Little Mermaid recently, Disney is absolutely in shambles. You don't need to be an expert to take one look at Mickey Mouse's house and go, wow, this place is screwed. But now their CEO Bob Iger is trying to push Disney past what he is calling the culture war. As Bob puts it, having Disney constantly be in the spotlight for these woke mishaps is not good for business. Gee, Bob, you think? It took you this long to realize that. And that Bob wants Disney to make stuff that's entertaining and not issue-focused. Which he says he wants, but the actions Disney has been taking these past few years is clearly opposite to what he's saying. There's this one CNBC interview getting attention where Bob is asked some hard-hitting questions. One of these being how Disney has been branded a woke corporation and they push sexuality onto children. And this all stems from Florida's Ron DeSantis, who claimed these things, and Bob Iger had something to say about it, and I quote, "Well, so far what we've said publicly is that we are concerned that he has decided to retaliate against the company for a position the company took on pending legislation in that state. And frankly, the company was within its right, even though I'm not sure it was handled very well. It was within its right to speak up on an issue that is protected by the right of free speech. And to retaliate against the company in a way that would be harmful to the business was not something that we could sit back and tolerate. And so we have filed a lawsuit to protect our First Amendment rights there and to protect our business frankly. The other issues that you referenced, the last thing that I want for the company is for the company to be drawn into any culture wars. You know, we've operated for almost 100 years as a company making product that we actually are proud of in terms of its impact on the world. I joke every once in a while, we're there to manufacture fun. I don't really want to engage in the specifics except to say that it's not our goal to be involved in a culture war. Our goal is to continue to tell wonderful stories and have a positive impact on the world. You know we are an entertainer in the world and we're proud of our track record there. The notion that Disney is in any way sexualizing children, quite frankly, is preposterous and inaccurate," end quote. Okay, but this couldn't be further from the truth, since Disney has been exposed time and again for pushing sexuality onto children quite often. Not to mention the dozens of articles where Disney employees have been arrested in connections to human trafficking. Or stuff like Disney employees being caught with CP, or employees being caught trying to set meetups with children for nefarious reasons. And you also have their own live streams where the people who work at Disney openly stating their intent to make future content as woke as possible. Here, look.
I worked at small studios most of my career, and I'd heard, you hear whispers. Like, I'd heard things like, oh, they won't let you show this at a Disney show. And I'm like, okay. So I was a little, sus when I started. My little pocket of, Proud Family, Disney TVA. The showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and, our leadership over there has been so welcoming to, my, not at all secret gay agenda. And so, I feel like I felt like it was, maybe it was that way in the past, but I guess something must have happened in the last, they were turning it around. Their sense of, I don't have to be afraid to let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background, I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to if you see anything queer in the show. I'm Proud Family. But I just was no one would stop me and no one was trying to stop me.
And these people are becoming increasingly emboldened when it comes to targeting children and pushing concepts that promote ideologies upon their impressionable minds. Bounding into comics, and their article references another article written by Emily Goldstein, which was so hateful and blatantly racist that if you go look up the article now, you get a disclaimer telling you just how insanely racist it is before you read it. And I'll leave a link in the description to that article if you want to read it yourself. Some of the things this Emily Goldstein person says include: diversity is about getting rid of white people, and that's a good thing. I'm extremely glad that the white race is dying, and you should be too. White people do not have a right to exist, period. That may sound like a bold statement, but it's entirely true. Any white person with even the faintest knowledge of history should curse themselves every single day for being white. Diversity is indeed white genocide, and white genocide is exactly what the world needs more than anything else. Like, are you kidding me right now? There is so obviously an agenda towards diversity and the erasure of white people specifically. Look, I understand that diversity is important, but it's also racist to admit you want to erase the white population from the planet as well. That's insane to even think, but it's normalized and it's encouraged to think this way these days. Disney also doesn't care that these insane things are being said or that their employees are being ousted as predators seemingly all the time either, because they frankly believe avoiding their content is more of an inconvenience to the everyday consumer. So they really believe they can push whatever they want because you won't boycott them anyway. And it's crazy to see Disney for what it is compared to what I thought of them when I was younger. From a magical, whimsical kingdom full of love and happiness, to actually being run by psychopaths who want to diddle and brainwash children. But this is the culture war Disney has brought upon themselves. Had they just continued making great content that put entertainment and profit before ideology, this video and many others wouldn't exist. The MCU prior to the crap of today was great because it was about telling stories and entertaining people. But the moment Kevin Feige bent the knee to woke identity politics, the sludge got in and now it's rotting from the inside out. Then you have the ill omen that just somehow keeps getting worse, which is Rachel Zegler, who, according to a new rumor, she's been fired from everything that she was attached to at Disney. From another new Snow White movie that was supposed to be a sequel to the reboot, as well as apparently being in the next Pirates of the Caribbean reboot, but she's also been fired from that too. And according to leaked analytics, the doomed Snow White remake is going to cost Disney around $209 million just in initial costs. And this number is what's being spent on the remake as of July 31st, 2022. And according to Valiant Renegade, who's accurately leaked much about Disney in the past, the film's final cost will be around $300 million. Jesus Christ! Meaning this doomed Snow White remake will cost Disney almost as much as it cost them to make Avengers Infinity War, if you can believe it. So Snow White needs to make around $336 million to cover the cost of the film's creation based on his July 2022 estimates. And when you factor in the final amount, Snow White will have to make around $750 million globally in order to turn a profit. Holy crap, dude. That's a lot of money. Mind you, The Little Mermaid this year brought in $569 million, and that was considered a flop when you compare it to its budget, and no pun intended. And while, yes, The Little Mermaid had controversy surrounding it, it's nothing compared to Snow White's. I'll be amazed if Snow White even makes $250 million. I'm being serious too. I think this film will actually be Disney's biggest flop ever, and that's no hyperbole either. Zegler apparently has also been recasted in Paddington 3 as well, with the cause being the Hollywood strikes, but we all know it's because of Snow White and she's become box office poison. Although, apparently, the Hollywood strikes are being used as a get-out-of-contract-free card for many studios. And tons of shows that were renewed originally are now being cancelled instead. And they are all being called victims of the strike. But I think it's just studios knowing they were in some deals that were locked in and knew they were bad. And these strikes are allowing them to drain the rot in order to save money. And speaking of rot draining, let's talk about Star Wars. The Ahsoka show is out there, and you'd think for a series about fan-loved characters debuting in live action, that this would be a mega hit, but alas, it isn't. That same analyst that leaks a ton of Disney stuff is claiming Disney at this point is losing too much money to justify the existence of their current Marvel and Star Wars shows on Disney+. When Ahsoka premiered, it generated 829 million minutes for Disney+, which might sound impressive, but it isn't. When Book of Boba Fett released in its opening week, it got 853 million minutes. Which is pathetic that Ahsoka was beaten by Book of Boba Fett, which, man, that show was ass, dude. Like, insanely bad. Those bikes? Good God. But what's weird is that when Boba Fett released, Disney had 42.9 million subscribers. And when Ahsoka came out, Plus gained another 3 million subscribers since then. But even with a higher amount of potential viewers, it didn't perform as well. So what Valiant Renegade is suggesting here is that these new subscriptions Disney is getting aren't subscribed for Star Wars or even Marvel anymore. In fact, these brands have been so diluted that they are no longer the leading reasons to subscribe to the service at all. And going forward, Disney has already announced they're going to release less Marvel and Star Wars content going forward anyway. Since not only are they just too expensive, but it's clearly not bringing the growth that they want. Turns out, to the surprise of nobody, the biggest sub-drivers are their movies, even Bob Iger said. One thing we also know is that our films, those that are released theatrically, big tentpole movies in particular, are great sub-drivers. But we were spreading our marketing costs so thin that we were not allocating enough money to even market them when they came on the service. For example, The Little Mermaid was a huge success on Disney+, but it's because people didn't go to theaters to watch it. But the existence of Disney Plus honestly kind of removes the need to go to the theaters to see these movies at release anyway. There's so many movies this year that I haven't even bothered to go watch in theaters because I know if I wait, I can just see them at home for cheaper. For example, I watched the new Ninja Turtles movie once I could rent it. I even watched The Flash on Crave while I edited a video one time. And all I gotta say is, am I glad I didn't pay to see that one in theaters? Because streaming is killing movie theaters, and at the same time, bad content is killing streaming. So we're in this very weird downward spiral where the quality of what's being made is no longer as important as the content just existing for consumption's sake. But it's evident that these mentalities are ruining Disney Plus and others like them. For every solid streaming show like Stranger Things or One Piece, you get a dozen Ahsokas and garbage like Secret Invasion. It's a never-ending battle to the bottom of diminishing returns. And Disney, whether they like to admit it or not, are the kings and queens of diminishing returns these days. But as you can see in this video, Disney is quietly admitting defeat when it comes to the culture war at large. They no longer feel confident when it comes to lecturing and belittling their paying customers. And they're learning the hard way that when you go woke, you don't just go broke, but you also die a very slow and painful death. As everything you worked and have become known for sours and twists until you can't do anything, but accept that continuing down this path will lead to nothing but more ruin. Disney can still save themselves, but in order to do that, they would have to expunge the woke plague and all the bad activists within them. And at this point, the amount of woke activists within Disney likely outweighs the actual true talent there anyway. So if anything, the more likely finale to this will simply be Apple buying Disney, and that's it. Maybe they can turn it around, or in my perfect world, Disney dies and Star Wars and Marvel are free again. But alas, maybe. I'm too hopeful myself. But this is what happens when a company with this much power at their disposal believes they don't need to do much in order to make money. When you hold some of the most important IP in the world and manage to squander its potential to such a degree that the ordinary consumer couldn't be bothered to watch it, you have no one to blame but yourself. When grooming children and pushing drag shows matters more to your bottom line than the genuine quality of your content, the downfall of Disney is a never-ending downward spiral that continues to reach new impressive lows. So if Bob Iger truly doesn't want another culture war on his hands, he needs to accept that the existence of that culture war is simply due to him and his yes man's moronic decisions. We didn't ask for this culture war. Fans didn't want to see the things they loved being ruined on a daily basis like this. This is due to the sheer hubris of a billion-dollar corporation that has become an echo chamber that refuses to allow actual unique voices into their arms. When everyone believes and says the same things with the same politics, the same talking points, and the same anti-attitudes, what you end up with is a homogenized group full of annoying yes men and women who have nothing unique to say. Disney could still turn this around, but it would require them to actually be open to that change. And when the politics are this ingrained, Bob Iger and the morons over there would rather see it all burn than ever actually admit they were wrong in the first place. Anyway, thank you for watching, dear viewer. I appreciate it immensely. Subscribe for more, like the video, and have a great day. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some Cyberpunk to play, so I will see you in the next one.